Great Lakes Prepping here. For decades, I've been an avid deer hunter, but until recently, I've stuck strictly to firearm hunting. For the last couple of years, I've wanted to expand that into bow hunting so I can sort of take advantage of more of the hunting time in a year. But because I'm not particularly great with a bow, I decided to buy a crossbow. Now, this is the CenterPoint Tormentor Whisper 380 crossbow package. I got this May of 2018, and I spent just about $300 on the whole package. Right now, it's actually on Amazon for more like $260, so the price has come down in the past year or so. This is my first crossbow, and I wanted to kind of start off small. Like anything, you can spend a little or an awful lot depending on what you want and just how crazy you want to get. But again, I wanted to start off a little bit small just to get a feel for if I like a crossbow, if it seems pretty effective. And in the not quite year and a half that I've owned it, I gotta say that I'm pretty impressed. If this is the entry-level crossbow, then I can't even imagine what $1,500 or $2,000 crossbow must be like. But anyway, in this video, I want to give just some information about the CenterPoint Tormentor Whisper and just my impressions of how I've liked using it over the last little while. Some of the features of this crossbow are the Whisper silencing system. That's what they call it in the product listing. And that's pretty much these sort of rubber dampers that are found kind of stuck between the limbs, and also this series of rubber dampeners kind of attached on either side of the rail here. I don't have a lot of experience shooting many other crossbows, but I will say that this thing is quieter than I would have expected it. I don't know if they make different accessories that would make it even quieter, but I'm pretty happy with it. At 25 yards or so, it's I'm not going to say it's inaudible, but it's pretty darn quiet. So if I did completely shoot right over top of something and the bolt didn't make a bunch of noise hitting trees or something, I feel like I'd have a chance at a second shot without scaring off my critter. The stock is some sort of composite. I don't know exactly what. Probably some kind of fiberglass composite. The product listing says that the limbs are 100% fiberglass and the riser is aluminum. This particular crossbow kit comes with a few accessories, including this scope, this quiver, which attaches to the underside of the crossbow. It comes with three pretty mediocre bolts, nothing special, with field tips on them. And of course, it comes with the cocker rope, which is right here. Can't really cock the thing without it. A little bit about the scope. The brand, it says CenterPoint right on it, so I'm assuming that it's their own, probably not their own scope, probably white labeled some mass-produced Chinese scope. I don't know. It serves its purpose. There are much better scopes out there, but at the range that we're talking for shooting a crossbow, I found it to be pretty sufficient. The crossbow is going to lose accuracy in a shorter distance than the scope will. According to the website, the weight of this with the quiver and scope attached is 7.8 pounds. That's lighter than a lot of other crossbows. This is said to be a compact crossbow. And again, I don't have a lot of experience with other crossbows, but a couple of other popular models that CenterPoint makes are the CenterPoint Sniper and the CenterPoint Specialist XL models. And this one is 4 inches narrower from axle to axle than either of those models. So I like that it's a little more compact. It's a little lighter. I usually hunt in kind of a deep woods setting, deer hunting anyway. And there's no getting around that this thing is a lot more cumbersome to try to maneuver through thick trees and brush and stuff with than a rifle. But I imagine it's a lot easier to work with than a bow that's a lot wider. It's not so heavy that it feels uncomfortable to shoot or to carry, but I will say that when I was tracking a deer through a long, winding mess of deep forest, it got pretty cumbersome. I wished I'd left it back with my blind before I started tracking, but what are you going to do? I always bring my rifle with me, so I figured that's what I would do. Some other impressions that I have about this bow, I think it's pretty easy to use. I have used other crossbows, and maybe it's because this is a compact model, maybe because it's got a lighter poundage. It seemed easier to cock, easier to kind of hold and level when I'm aiming. I found that the trigger feels very crisp and clean. It's not squishy or sloppy, even though it has to deactivate safety feature with each pull. It's still very smooth and crisp, and I appreciate that about it. It's a nice, solid feeling trigger. Speaking of safety features, I'll mention that every time you cock this, it automatically triggers a safety to engage. And before you can pull the trigger, every single time, you have to flip this safety forward. And it is ambidextrous, so you can flip it forward from either side, which is handy for me because I'm a lefty, and firearms and hunting equipment is notoriously sort of skewed towards righties, so I was happy that this was ambidextrous. So every time you want to pull the trigger, you have to flip the safety forward. That would be annoying if this thing was a semi-automatic rifle, but I don't mind it at all on a crossbow because you're walking around with this thing all day with it cocked, and having that safety on makes me feel very comfortable that it's not going to accidentally release that bolt when I'm not ready for it to do so. Now, I mentioned the scope isn't great, but it's served me just fine. Once I got it sort of zeroed in and I adjusted it forward, I had to go about as forward as it could on this Picatinny rail for the eye relief to be where I like it. But once I got it all sort of adjusted the way I like it and sighted in, I say it's very accurate. And the crossbow itself shoots very flat, very straight, up to about 20 yards. If you put the crosshairs on your target at 20 yards, or maybe even anywhere between 10 and 20 yards, you're going to hit that thing pretty spot on. But 25 yards, 30 yards, you're going to have to start adjusting for elevation when you're looking at the reticle. And that's okay. On a rifle, the difference between 20 and 25 yards is just nothing. But on this thing, that bolt, it's going to start losing elevation pretty quick, so you have to adjust. But that's fine. Some practice, and it's not a big deal. Now, I would say that I've shot this thing very consistently and reliably around 25 to 30 yards, because that's about the distance that I have on my property where it's convenient for me to set up a target. So I practiced a lot at about 25 to 30 yards. I purchased this not quite a year and a half ago, and in that time I've shot it a lot. I've probably shot it about 100 times if I had to guess. I don't really know. Could have been 90, could have been 110. I always make sure to keep the rail nice and lubricated. The kit also comes with a little container of lubricant. Looks kind of like a chapstick. After about every 5 or 10 bolts, I put just a little bit on there just to make sure it's nice and lubricated. But anyway, I've shot this thing a lot, and it's been very reliable, very accurate. I haven't had any problems. There's nothing about it that seemed even remotely like it wanted to break or creak or crack or anything like that. It's been really good. And I've taken it hunting 2 different times. One was a rabbit hunt, one was a deer hunt. And in both cases, I came home with a critter. Now, when I got a rabbit, I shot him at about 15 yards, and I used one of these little crazy looking small game tips. It's pretty much a blunt hunk of metal that I didn't really know what to expect. I thought it would just sort of club them to death, but it actually still tore clean through the rabbit, and I found the bolt quite a distance past where I found the rabbit. He dropped pretty immediately. But anyway, I took the recommendation off of the internet basically, and I'd say it worked pretty good, even though it's a kind of a crazy looking little head. The deer last year was a real nice looking doe, and I took her down with just a standard 3-blade fixed point tip. I know they make a lot of different fancy ones, spring loaded, all sorts of crazy gadgets, but I thought I would go simple and just use a standard 3-blade fixed tip. All in all, I really like it. I like the camo. I wish it was just a little bit lighter, but again, it's a lot lighter compared to other crossbows. It's a little awkward to carry around in the woods. Luckily, I'm sitting in a blind much of the time. If I had to purchase another crossbow, if something happened to this one, I'd be pretty interested in purchasing another CenterPoint, maybe even the same exact crossbow. Maybe I would try a different one just to try one. One other quick thing to mention, in addition to the Picatinny rail on the top for optics, the bottom also has a long rail that goes all the way from here almost to the trigger. And that comes with this sort of forward grip that you can hold on to, and you can move that up and down this rail to match where it feels most comfortable to you. I found it comfortable closer to the trigger. It's also a convenient spot to attach my GoPro to with this little mount, but you could feasibly put a light or something like that on there. It's also got the points to attach a sling, although I found that trying to sling this over my shoulder and walk anywhere was pretty much impossible with the quiver attached, because the quiver attaches up here, and when that's on there, there's no real way for this to comfortably rest against your body, because a lot of the weight of the thing is trying to push against this quiver, and I just don't trust that that's not either going to break or cause bolts to fall out of the thing while I'm traveling. So I didn't really use the sling, and maybe that's one of the reasons that I found it kind of cumbersome to walk around the woods with it. Well, as long as I'm reviewing the crossbow, I figured I might as well mention the case that I bought for it. This is the Plano Spire crossbow case. They might make more than one, but this one doesn't necessarily have a particular model name for it. Because of the clunky and sort of awkward nature of a crossbow, I wanted to get a proper hard shell case for it, protect it while I'm traveling and while it's in storage, that sort of thing. This thing has worked out really well. I'm pretty happy with it. I will mention that it's a bit bigger than it needs to be. It would hold a bigger crossbow, but the options are a little bit limited for specifically a compact crossbow. So this is the one I went with. It was really good for the price. I bought this for about $56 on Amazon, although right now I'm noticing that the price is more about $75. But still, for the price, I think it's very good. It's got really good thick padding. It's got 3 latches. It's also got multiple points where you could add a padlock if that's what you wanted. So that's it. This is my review of the CenterPoint Tormentor Whisper 380 crossbow and package. That's all for now, and until next time, this is Great Lakes Prepping.